All right, it is go time. We are live. Good evening. I am yours truly, Dr. Pierre, your favorite board certified internist, host of Real Physician Reacts. If this is your first time catching this series, this is my live weekly series where I just talk about something that comes across my social media platform, and you kind of hear my personal thoughts, especially from a physician standpoint, on what's going on. This week we have another doozy, right? I'm almost gonna have to probably make a different category, right? So we're gonna put this in a category as a person who exercises their choice and doesn't realize that consequences also come with that choice. We've actually had quite a few episodes during this series. We've had a teacher, we've had a nurse, and now this is probably the most famous person outside of this is probably going to be the most famous person because I was thinking of our NBA series, and this guy's probably a little bit more famous than that person, right? So we're going to be talking about the world number one tennis player Novak Djokovic, who caused a bit of controversy about a month or so ago regarding his vaccination status and regarding a recent Grand Slam that he was scheduled to attend and was really favored to win. And it wasn't just going to be just a regular win on the grand circuit, right? The grand of his kind of tennis tournaments, especially for those who are kind of familiar with tennis tournaments. But it was going to break a deadlock tie between two other amazing tennis players, Nadal and Roger Federer. But unfortunately, Novak did not get that opportunity to do so, right? And we are going to be talking about just why. So today we're going to actually see two different videos, one kind of detailing the controversy uh, prior to the tournament, and then the next one really kind of discussing, what occurred afterwards, right? And then obviously, me, you're going to hear my thoughts, right? So I'll probably let the first video kind of run, kind of give you my thoughts, and then kind of go on to the next video as well, too, right? So let's get ourselves squared away here.
Reeve here with the details. Good morning.
Oh, sorry about that. It's frozen on me. Ooh, let me do this. Let me refresh the page so I can see the video. I'm about to go. Well, while we wait for that to load up, let me bring my screen a little bit bigger now. I'll wait for this to kind of load up on us. So the video that I'm about to show kind of details the controversy that kind of led up to this hoopla, right? So again, Djokovic is the world ranked number one tennis player, and since the beginning of the pandemic, has been very vocal on his opposition against mandates. Right? He
The
feels
world's
that.
top
Oh,
tennis
hold on.
player who denied
Now it
entry
pops up.
into Australia after battle with
Hold on.
visa and COVID vaccination status. Novak Djokovic had his medical exemption revoked after arriving in the country to defend his title. Will Reeve here with the details. Good morning, Will.
Michael, good morning. To watch Novak Djokovic play tennis is to witness the sublime, even something approaching the divine. But the defending Australian Open champ is just a human, and according to the Australian government, is no better than any other. They said he did not meet the requirements to enter their country. Now they're requiring him to leave. This morning, history on pause for tennis superstar Novak Djokovic, as his bid for a record-breaking Australian Open title may be over before it begins. Overnight, fellow tennis great Rafael Nadal, who is currently tied with Djokovic and Roger Federer for the most Grand Slam single titles with 20, he made his own decisions, and everybody is free to take their own decisions, but then there are some consequences. Adding that, the world, in my opinion, has been suffering enough to not follow the rules. Djokovic was denied entry into the country after an hours-long detainment at the Melbourne airport. Australian Border Force is canceling the world number one's visa after they deemed he failed to provide appropriate evidence to meet the entry requirements to Australia.
That's what's really mind-boggling about the situation, that he was able to get a medical exemption. He got on a plane to leave Europe and come to Australia. He lands at the airport in Melbourne 20 to 24 hours later, and then the Border Patrol says, hold on a second, we're not letting you in the country.
Overnight, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison defending the decision.
Rules are rules, and there are no special cases. Ultimately, this is the responsibility of the traveller.
Djokovic staying at this Melbourne hotel as his attorneys vow to appeal. This dramatic visa turnaround comes just days after the 9-time Australian Open winner, who has repeatedly refused to confirm his vaccination status, posted this photo, announcing he was granted exemption permission by the tournament. One of tennis's 4 Grand Slams, the Australian Open this year requires all players to be vaccinated or have a medical exemption. Organizers insist their approval was impartial.
I think it's incumbent upon Novak Djokovic to make a public statement to explain his position. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be rain and booze when he takes that court.
Djokovic is currently at the Park Hotel quarantine facility in Melbourne. He'll be there until at least Monday. A federal judge in Australia said there was a delay in receiving Djokovic's appeal of those visa decisions. That case has been adjourned until Monday, unless Djokovic decides to leave Australia of his own accord before then. Guys?
All right. So just to kind of give a quick little summary, because again, this obviously, a lot of this already happened. So this is a person who's been very vocal about vaccine mandates. Also, very silent on whether he's vaccinated, which is, they typically tell on themselves when they do that. So as the time comes to approach, obviously, again, he is the favorite to win this tournament, win this Grand Slam, and to become the first player to have 21 individual Grand Slams. I mean, just a phenomenal achievement, all in all, right? You heard him; he's like the 9-time, winner. But unfortunately, someone gives him a medical exemption, right? We're not even going into kind of the depths of how he got his medical exemption. I've talked about this on this series as well as the Medicine Mondays, that there are very few medical related reasons why you can't get the COVID vaccine. It just is, right? Like there's very few, especially because we have 2 different types. So if there's some medical concerns with one type, you can always get the other type. And there's some medical concerns with one type, you can get the other, right? Like, so there's very few reasons that you are universally blocked from getting the COVID vaccine, right? We've already talked about this ad nauseum. And because we know that when you see these people, pull up medical exemptions, right? You're already looking kind of, it's already kind of looking weird. And mind you, he's gotten COVID. So this is a person who is actually which again happens a lot. You'd be surprised. Who's been affected by COVID. I'm not sure how ill he got, but we just know he did get COVID in the past. And then when it comes time for tournament, somehow he's able to finagle his way to get a medical exemption. And then with that medical exemption, he's like, all right, now I'm going to the tournament. I'm ready to go. Unfortunately for him, and fortunately for everyone else who worked the tournament, who works around the tournament, the Australian Open, and really, kind of Australia was like, nah, like, I don't know where you got that exemption from, but like, I'm not sure if I'm even gonna let you into our country. And he was actually detained, right, trying to go get into the country. And then after this hoopla, again, there was a lot of fanfare on social media, on a lot of even like the regular BBC News and all this other stuff here. He was denied his visa, so he was not allowed to play in his Australian Open. Now, full disclosure, one of my favorite players, Nadal, was allowed to play and he won it, right? So I didn't feel bad whatsoever that he couldn't play. But there was the same type of energy that typically occurs from those on the other side whenever someone exercises their right to say, you know what, I'm not getting vaccinated. Whenever someone exercises that right, there seems to be this weird energy from that side who says, like, hey, if he exercises his right, like he should still be able to do whatever he wants. And they don't seem to understand that yes, you can exercise your right to not get vaccinated. Cool. But just understand that you're gonna have consequences kind of following it. And you heard a clip from the doll that says like, "Hey, you know what? We've been dealing with this for a couple of years. You know, we're trying to get over the hump. We're trying to get past this. So if you're not on the team and you're not fully with it, then like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care that you're the number one player. You know, you're not above this, right? And I love what the Australian Open and really Australia did in general, saying that like, hey, I don't care how important this person is. If they are not vaccinated, they are not coming into our country, right? Like, I love the fact that they said that, and that was just again, it warmed my heart, especially because I knew that would automatically make my favorite player, Nadal, the likely favorite to win, which he did eventually win. It was actually good, thrilling discussion, right? So again, we've talked about this several times throughout the weeks about the fact that we have lots of people who want to be able to exercise their right to say like, hey, I'm not going to get that vaccine, but by the way, like I want all of the rights. I want to be able to do whatever I want, right? And it just don't work that way, right? Like I love actually, yeah, let's see that. Oh yeah, so this is a good one right here. Right? So the Moderna and Pfizer alleged vaccine trials have explicitly acknowledged that their gene therapy technology has no impact on viral infection or transmission whatsoever. David E. Martin, I don't even know who the hell this David E. Martin is, right? So this is a comment that we got on YouTube, right? And I really wanted to highlight this, right? Because this, right, these are the groups of people who we are talking about. These are the people who have convinced themselves that like the vaccine trials, and mind you, they talked about Moderna, Pfizer, didn't really mention the Johnson and Johnson. No one's really said anything about that. This discussion on gene therapy technology, I'm assuming they're talking about the mRNA technology, just another bout of kind of conspiracy theory talk that you typically get a lot. Like if you guys want a good laugh, I implore you to look at my comments on most of my videos of Real Physician Reacts, and you'll typically get comments like that, right? Like, yes, like, no, that 100%. He will definitely be all right. Again, he's the number one player. He does not really need, right, to do this, right? Again, obviously, he's not a part of history, but again, if it's his choice, right? It's his choice to say, you know what, I'm not going to do what I want to do, right? So now we're going to fast forward because obviously he was kicked out of the country, and one of his rivals ended up winning the 21st Grand Slam, becoming the first individual male to win 21 Grand Slam championships. Right, so he got a lot of the fanfare that again Novak likely would have got because again he was the favorite. Again, the guy's won it 9 times. He was likely going to win it again. So that's how good he is. But someone else got the fanfare, which we love and appreciate. And during this whole time, again, he was very non-committal about his stance on the vaccine and what this meant going forward. Because obviously, this was just one instance, one tournament. But he had to knew that this was likely going to be something that followed them for subsequent tournaments as we move forward, right? And of course, the question came up like, hey, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do to pose the issue of, hey, if you want to get to this country, if you want to play in this tournament, you also have to be vaccinated. Like, what are you going to do about that, right? So this next video is going to be the highlight focus on his response, right, and what he feels, right? And again, I want to commend him, right? I want to commend this guy because here he is saying like, hey, you know what? It's my decision, and I'm willing to take, all of the issues that kind of come with my decision. So let's take a look here. Video. So this video is off BBC.
Have you received any vaccination against COVID?
I have not.
Why? I understand that and support fully the freedom to choose, whether you want to get vaccinated or not. And I have not spoken about this before, and I have not disclosed my medical record and my vaccination status because I had the right to keep that private and discreet. But as I see, there's a lot of wrong conclusions and assumptions out there. I think it's important to speak up about that and justify certain things, right? So I was never against vaccination. I understand that globally everyone is trying to put a big effort into handling this virus and seeing it.
So let me pause him right there, right? Let me hop back on real quick. So again, he talks about how he was never against vaccination, which actually isn't true. And one thing I've found, especially with those who are against the COVID vaccine, they absolutely hate when you call them anti-vax. Like, for some reason, they recognize that there's a lot of negative connotations associated with being anti-vax, especially with this vaccine here. So they are very quick to tell you that, hey, I've gotten vaccines before. Like, it's not like I'm adverse to getting vaccines. I just don't want to get this one. And I quickly respond and say, well, if you don't want to get this one, that means you're anti-vax. Like I, right, and I tell my colleagues this all the time. I don't have to specify the fact that you are just anti-vax for this one particular vaccine. I just have to say you're anti-vax, right? It's up to you, right? It's up to you to explain to everyone else that you're okay with all the other vaccines, but this is the one that you kind of draw that line again. And it's always again the mindset, right? And remember, we kind of mentioned that one comment that talked about alleged vaccine trials and gene therapy. You know, too funny, right? But we talked about that, right? Because we have multiple different versions of vaccines, right? So when you hear people talk about, oh, I don't like that new vaccine or that new type, I say, oh, well, they get the Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson, it's made off the old type of technology of how we create vaccines. Get that one if you're afraid of the new technology, which is the mRNA vaccines. But you know, once you put them to that corner, then they have another reason why they don't want to get vaccinated. So I definitely will disagree with him on his stance of being against the vaccine because he's been very vocal about the mandates to get vaccinated. So if you're very vocal about the mandates to get vaccinated, you're likely very vocal about why you have to get the mandated, right? The subject of the mandate, which is the vaccine, right? But again, just too funny with with again and again, it's not just him. This is typically how they go about talking about how they're anti-vax.
Hopefully an end soon to this virus. And vaccination is probably the biggest effort that was made. Probably half of the planet was.
So and then as you can see here, he mentions that, and he understands that to try to get over this pandemic, the biggest and best way we're going to do so is vaccination. So this is kind of that yin and yang that a lot of the anti-vaxxers typically have to deal with, right? They understand, like they want to get quote unquote back to normal. They want life to go back to normal. They understand that the way we can get back to normal is to get vaccinated, but for some reason, like that is where they like draw the line. Like, hey, yes, I want to get back to normal. I know the way to get back to normal is get vaccinated, but like I don't want to do that. Right? This kind of blows your mind. I saw someone social media post today. I wish I would have saved it. That talked, and again, this is again on those who are anti-vax. This is typically they don't even understand how silly they look or sound when they say it. But like this was the phrase. It was, oh, the government, rushed you guys, to get vaccinated, and then once you got vaccinated, they started opening up outside. And in this person, in this anti-vaxxer's mind, he was trying to say, like, oh, if you would have just waited and not get vaccinated, they would have opened up everything. But he doesn't realize that the reason why they're opening up everything is because everyone rushed to get vaccinated, right? And this is the logic, right? This is the faulty logic that they've had. We've talked about this on this show before, that the anti-vaxxer logic is so flawed. And at this point, we are 2+ years into this pandemic. At this point, it's really nothing but pride because there is no scientific evidence that they have. There is, the whoever it is, David E. Martin. I'm gonna look him up and maybe we'll talk about him next week, right? Like there's no scientific evidence to show why they should be anti-vax, why they think the vaccine doesn't work. There is no government, and not only like local. I'm here in the United States, so not a local government. There is no worldwide conspiracy, right? There isn't any, but they believe it is to get everyone vaccinated. There hasn't been. So when you have to listen to the logic of our anti-vaxxers, it almost like kind of drives you crazy. But you have to remember, like, okay, this is their world, right? And we just kind of have to observe from afar. So let's continue to listen to our guy here.
Was vaccinated, and I fully respect that. But I've always represented and always supported the freedom to choose what you put into your body. And for me, that is essential. It's really the principle of understanding what is right and what is wrong for you. And me as an elite professional athlete, I've always carefully reviewed, assessed everything that comes in from the supplements, food.
And I hate to stop him there, right? Just in case you are wondering, because he kind of mentioned that he's a superior athlete, and he always wants to be careful with his body. He, right, Novak, is one of 3 of the top 100 tennis players who is not vaccinated. Like 97 of the top 100 tennis players are vaccinated already. So the question has to, what drives you, right? With anyone with common sense to say, like, how is it that 97 of the top 100 players are vaccinated, and clearly there are elite athletes, and they nutrition and eat well and all of that, blah blah blah, which they try to like. How is it that it's okay for them, but for some reason you're a little weary about what's going on and what's going on in your body? And again, asking a person who is anti-vax, right? What they think actually happens to a vaccine when you get injected, like that's more comedy than anything else, right? Like if you have time, ask your friends, right, who are anti-vax against the vaccine for whatever reason, what they think happens to the vaccine when it gets like inside you, right? Like what do they think occurs in the range of stories? It will like again will cause just laugh and dying to the ground, right? Like it's again, I've heard genetic changing. I've heard it's a messenger DNA, even though there's no way it can messenger. Like I've heard so many crazy stories associated with what people think is going to happen when they get injected with a vaccine, that like you just kind of like wow, like you're almost in a state of shock. So again, here he talks about how he's an athlete, an elite athlete, and he's always watching what's in his body. But then, like, I wish, again, if it was me, I would have asked him, well, 97 of the other 100 elite athletes in your profession, right? I'm not even talking about hockey, football, basketball. Like, I'm not even talking about those professions. Just in your profession alone, out of the top 100 players, like 97% of you guys are vaccinated, right? So what makes it good for them but not good for you, right? It's usually a question they never can actually answer fully, but it's always good to kind of get a laugh.
The water that I drink or sports drinks, anything really that comes into my body as a fuel, based on all the informations that I got, I decided not to take the vaccine.
So, and this right here, right? This right here, we've talked about this before, right? Whenever people start talking about based off the information that I got, based off the information that I read, like what information are you guys actually reading 2 years into it that makes you defer that the vaccine is not good, right? Like, what is the information that you're reading? What is the like? Name your source. Like, that's how I always ask for. Like, if you're reading some credible source that you have inside information on that clearly the majority of the world does not, like, you should be able to. You should be sharing that left and right. Most of the time, they don't have any like actual information or actually credible information, which is why they never mention it, right? They never name what the credible information is. It's just, again, it's just one of those ways that they try to say it to kind of sound, right, like they're smart and educated, so that people who may not know as much won't ask them like secondary or tertiary questions.
As of today.
So do you have, as of today?
Yes, I keep my mind open because we are all trying to find collectively a best possible solution to end COVID, right? I mean, no one really wants to be in this kind of situation that we've been in collectively for 2 years. I'm part of a sport, a very global sport that is played every single week in a different location. So, I understand the consequences of my decision. And one of the consequences of my decision was not going to Australia, and I was prepared not to go. And I understand that not being vaccinated today, I'm unable to travel to most of the tournaments.
So yeah, so let's stop him right here, right? Because he talks about how he understands that him not being vaccinated, right, is enough for him to understand that he's likely not going to be able to attend these tournaments. But again, for a person like that, right, again, that's why, again, you have to listen to what they say, but you really follow their actions, right? If he actually truly believed what he said, he wouldn't go out and try to get a medical exemption, right? He wouldn't try to do because mind you, he was like, he showed a tweet, like he showed a tweet, hey, got my medical exemption in my hand, I'm coming to Australia, right? So clearly he took the extra effort to try to get around, right, the rules. He went the extra mile to try to get around the rules. So clearly, it's actually important for him to attend these Grand Slam tournaments around the world. He knows it. And unfortunately, the way he tried to, again, finagle the system didn't work for him. So because it backfired, and it backfired so publicly that he had to be essentially embarrassed, held on at the border, right, and saying, and Australia being like, you are not coming in our country, right? Because of that embarrassment, right, he doesn't want to have to go through that again, right? So when he talks about like, yeah, I'm okay with not really, going to any tournaments, no, you're not actually okay, because if you were, you would have said, hey, I'm not vaccinated. Y'all need me to be vaccinated. I'm not going over there, and I'm not even going to attempt to try to get a medical exemption. But clearly he did, because he knows how important it is to go there. But again, this is a guy he's won 20 tournaments. He's made plenty of money. So it's not like financially, I'm assuming, not like financially he needs to go to these tournaments anymore. He gets paid very well. He's got paid very well from sponsors, paid very well from just his career earnings. So he's fine there, right? Like, that's okay. But the fact that like he tries to say like, oh, if I can't go to these tournaments anymore, I guess that's okay. But no, it's not, right? Like, clearly you were trying to usurp, right, the rule of the Australian Open, and really the country of Australia, and it came back to bite you.
At the moment,
And that's the price you're willing to pay.
That is the price that I'm willing to pay.
Ultimately, are you prepared to forego the chance to be the greatest player that ever picked up a racket, statistically, because you feel so strongly about this jab?
Yes, I do.
But as things stand, if this means that you miss the French Open, is that a price you'd be willing to pay?
Yes, that is the price that I'm willing to pay.
And if it means that you miss Wimbledon this year, again, that's a price you're willing to pay?
Yes.
Why, Novak?
Well, I love the reporter's face, right? Because he can't hold it in, right? He can't hold in the fact that, like, are you for real? Like, all right, You missed the Australian Open because they wouldn't let you get away with that lie of that BS medical exemption. But are you really okay not going to the French Open, not going to Wimbledon? Are you really okay with that? And he had to look him straight in the face because even he couldn't believe it. Now, mind you, again, I already said it before. Financially, he's good, right? He's good financially, so it's not like he's going to be hurting, right? Legacy will definitely take a hit if he never plays a tournament again and he's stuck on 20 and Nadal runs it up to like 23 or 24, like something crazy like that. His legacy is going to hurt, right? And it's going to hurt because they're going to say like, man, imagine how many he could have won, right? If he would have just got vaccinated. Imagine, right? And this again, this is what I absolutely love it, right? I love that his pride has cemented him to the point where he's not going anywhere. I absolutely love it because this is what we want, right? This we need this public display to show people, right? Like no one here, right? You may hear me say on a week-to-week basis, go get vaccinated, wear your mask, social distance. You're gonna hear me say that, but you're never gonna hear me say you have to do it. I'm just here to say that if you don't do it, there's likely going to be consequences, right? So I love that we continue to show people who have to deal with the consequences of not getting vaccinated. I absolutely love it, right? So I absolutely love, right, when that nurse has to walk out of her hospital, right, because all the employees need to be vaccinated. And she needs to make this like social media video, right, to get fame. And guess what? I'm going to give you the fame you're looking for. I absolutely love when the teacher, right, who's been working at the school for 20 years decides, you know what, I'm done working at the school because they want me to get vaccinated, even though I got to take care of young kids who aren't even eligible to get vaccinated. I'm okay with you seeing the door. And if you want to put a camera in your face and you want people to promote it, I'm here to promote it as well, too. So, again, I love the fact, right? I love the fact that this guy right here is saying, like, I'm willing to miss all of these tournaments. I'm willing to make sure my legacy has an asterisk. I'm willing to have people scratching their head trying to figure out. Now, what he's hoping, let me tell you what it really is, right? So, because again, this is why you come to this series, right? What he's hoping is that over time, everyone else will do what they need to do in terms of those who get vaccinated, those who who look to protect others. They will do such a great job that it will bring the numbers down and then make it safe for the anti-vaxxers of the world to kind of come out freely. That's really what he's hoping for. He's hoping that if he buys enough time, right, the restrictions will loosen because everyone else did their job. And then, of course, he'll come in like, I'm here now, right? Which is what they've been doing now. And then he'll probably make a stupid post like that post I kind of talked about. Hey, look, all I had to do was miss 4 or 5 different tournaments, and I didn't have to get vaccinated. All the while underlying the fact that a whole bunch of other people got to be vaccinated. Unfortunately, a lot of people probably had to get the virus and died, and the numbers decreased before that occurred, right? So again, I just love it. Let's end this off for him so we can get up out of here.
Because the principles of decision making on my body are more important than any title or anything else. I'm trying to be in tune with my body as much as I possibly can.
What do you say directly to anti-vaccination campaigners around the world who proudly declare Novak Djokovic is one of us?
I say that everyone has the right to choose to act or say whatever they feel is appropriate for them. And I have never said that I'm part of that movement. No one in the whole process during Australian saga has asked me on my stance or my opinion on vaccination.
All right. I was hoping to be able to get out of here. So first of all, he's lying, right? Since he's been as vocal as he's been since the beginning of the pandemic against COVID vaccine mandates, they've been asking him, like, sir, like, are you anti-vaccine? Are you anti-vax? Or are you not getting the vaccine? Did you get the vaccine? They've been asking this question. So for him to sit here and act like, it wasn't until the Australian Open that people inquired, whether he was vaccinated. It's just a flat out lie. And you see how when the reporter says, hey, like the anti-vaxxers of the world are saying, like, hey, this guy's one of us, he doesn't really refute it. He just says, well, people say what they say, right? I never said anything. So he doesn't refute it and say, oh, I'm definitely not that. He just says, hey, I never said I wasn't, right? Which is, again, the same thing in that regard, right? But again, and this whole BS of being in tune with my body, and oh my god, that's even more of a head scratcher. Again, I always implore people, right? Ask them how long they think the vaccine stays in their body. Just, just, just ask 10 of your friends how long when you get the vaccine or when you get a vaccine, right? Or a medication, a antibiotic, a like how long do you think it actually stays in your body, right? And you're gonna get 10 different answers because people don't know, right? Like it just is it's more comedy more than anything else.
No one. So I could not really express, what I feel and where my stance is, neither in the legal process, neither outside. So it's really unfortunate that there has been this kind of misconception and wrong conclusion that has been made around the world based upon something that I completely disagree with.
So again, he talks about how the world has made this wrong conclusion and this misperception. No, we're just following your lead. Like you've been very vocal on against vaccine mandates, and when it comes time to go to a tournament that requires vaccination, you lied to get a medical exemption. When you were caught with a lie, because again, that's the reason why they booted him back out of Australia because he was caught, and they said this is a BS medical exemption, right? Like you can get vaccinated, and if you don't want to get vaccinated, get back out of our country. And because he was caught, now we don't understand what's going on. We are mischaracterizing it, right? Like this, again, just the level of this comedy, man. I don't understand it. I don't understand it from that standpoint there, right? Um, yeah, we got some more YouTube comments here, right? And different languages, so we're not gonna be able to get nothing from there. But like again, before we get out of here, right? Again, this is again me stressing, right? This importance, right? I love to highlight it. Understand that you are not, I'll just say you, right? Whoever you are out there watching this video, you are not required to get anything, right? We're not requiring you to get a vaccine. We're just saying that if you don't get the requirement, whatever that requirement is, you're not going to be able to do blank, right? That's all we're saying, right? If you don't get the vaccine, cool, you can't work here. If you don't get the vaccine, cool, you can't play in our tournament. If you don't get the vaccine, you can't come in our country, right? That's all we're saying, right? Like, and so again, remember, freedom of choice does not equal without consequences, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you just kind of whisk away and not have to worry about any consequences associated with your choice, right? Again, I am yours truly, Dr. Pierre. Again, thank you guys. I know we missed last week episode. I was doing a great interview with Dr. Naimi, who podcast episode and Monday episode just dropped this week. So if you have a chance, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you're tuned in every single week, so we can hear and you can see some of my hate comments that I typically get, like this one right here. You are a doctor, right? Like yeah, this is what Real Physician Reacts brings to the table, which we love and appreciate. Again, I just appreciate the fact that you watch. So you guys be blessed. Have a great week, and I'm gonna see you guys next week. I'm not sure what we're gonna talk about, but you already know the way this world works. Someone's gonna say something crazy, and I'm gonna talk.